year because the country had not done its risk assessment. Okay, so that's the net effect on the industry. And then, of course, if the country had done the risk assessment and it came out as high, definitely we would lose a lot of business. Okay, and we would incur loads of fees. Okay, so let me just show you so you can have a visual. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the Basel Committee, one of the international regulators. They, along with Transparency International, they risk rate countries. And you see where their legend is right here. All the green means it's low, the yellow means it's medium, and then the red, of course, is high. So you look at all over Africa, that's orangey, right? And let's look at Haiti right there. Nobody's doing business with Haiti, right? And so very high score. So where are we? Bahamas, like I said, for the most part, it used to be 6.34, and I'm happy to say now it has dropped to 5.93. So that means we're not borderline high risk any longer. And so I can now go, if I needed to, and prove that for 2023, I don't need to spend this $100,000 into Switzerland just to hold our trading desk. We can now open up this account. Okay, so this is different countries around the world, and this is a map from the Basel Committee. The next thing that is very important is methodology. Like, how do they come up with this rating? Because of course, no country wants to be considered high risk. If you're considered high risk, that means that enhanced due diligence has to be carried out on your country. Okay, that means some countries will not do business with you. So nobody wants to be subjected to enhanced due diligence. And let me just give you an example of the fees. An application fee for a low or medium risk account is $250. An application fee for a high risk account is $1,500. And that's on the company level. That's for a client. Imagine for a country, us who continuously borrowing. We ain't just borrowing and they saying, we can do your application free for free. There are charges with all these applications that we are incurring every time we go and apply for more loans. Anybody were to Commonwealth Bank, you ever see their amortization schedules where they show you $10,000, then you borrow $2,000, $10,000 worth of fees. You all familiar with what Ms. Bullitt talking about? You all there? Anybody there?
We are.
You're so true.
One of the highest interest.
Yeah, so that's what's happening on the country level. Okay, and so the Basel Committee tells you these are how we risk rate countries. Okay, because if a country comes out as high risk, of course there's going to be backlash, and the country is going to say no, I can't be high risk. And so in domain one, and we had a very large discussion about this in my other class, so I made this a question on the test. Okay, but I think I should save this for when you get to intermediate, because we'll go more in depth. So the first domain is the quality of your framework. Okay, and here's the FATF mutual evaluation report. And so we was deficient in 22 of those 40 recommendations. So if we didn't update them right away, of course, that's a big 35%. There was no way we could come out other than high risk, because that's 65%. Okay, and things that we can't control, of course, we are a transit country, and so trafficking in persons, luckily, is only 5%. And then the U.S. Department Narcotics Control Strategy, 5%. And of course, we get full points in those areas because we are a transit country. Okay, so framework, corruption and bribery, transparency and standards. And so every time you hear from ministers, the prime minister, every time he spoke, he kept saying, we are trying to be transparent. He just kept saying that, put it into the atmosphere and say, the Bahamas is working on it. Okay, and then public transparency and accountability and political and legal risk. But of course, we see the bulk of the percentage is 65% dealing with this mutual evaluation. And so this is methodology. Okay, so please understand methodology, because in your institutions, you risk rate products and services. You also risk rate clients, right? And nobody can understand or explain, well, how do you risk rate the client? And not that you shared with the client, but you should know as a compliance officer, where do you get your source data from? I get my country risk rating from the Basel Index. Okay, I get the corruption perception index from corruption perception from Transparency International. You need to understand the methodology and explain there are 5 domains in this. Indeed, this is how we risk rate. Okay, so understand methodology, and then that way you will pick up if there is something wrong or if there's an error. Okay, are we clear? Are we clear on the country risk rating? Yes, no, are we clear on methodology? Come talk back to me, come on.
No, Miss Bullet.
You're asleep. What's Miss Bullet fall asleep?
No, Miss Bullet, you could discuss it a little further, please.
Okay.
So the Basel index is what they use to rate countries, and the methodology is the 5 domains. I'm trying to get this understanding.
Yeah, the methodology is the 5 domains. And so
Okay.
if the Bahamas came out as high risk, of course we would argue that, right? And we would say, prove to us how you came up with a high risk rating, and this their proof, because they use various percentages and various domains to risk rate us. So what I'm saying is each institution has a risk rating form, correct? Do you understand how it works?
No.
If you had to answer, right, and that's what I'm saying, that's because
I don't.
know methodology, and you need, if you work in the compliance department,
I
or
don't.
if you are risk rating people, you need to understand the methodology, because you may be doing it wrong.
I don't.
So if you can't
understand.
explain why I'm high risk, then you know something is wrong. So you need to say, I noticed that I'm from Haiti. Where did you get a Haiti risk rating? Did you decide that Haiti was high risk? And then you say, no, I didn't just decide that Haiti was high risk. I went to the Basel Committee site and I saw that Haiti had a score of 8.16. And so I used the Basel Committee site. I didn't make it up, and I didn't determine it. And so this is what you're saying. We have a lot of persons from Haiti who were born there in the Bahamas. And so they may be risk rated high, not because of the amount of transactions or the amount of money, but just simply because of their country.
The domicile, yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Okay, so just be able to explain how your form works. Understand how it works. And then this Basel Committee, like I said, up until last year, we were 6.34. Each year, this is updated. So each year you need to update your internal risk rating, because the scores could change, you know. And there's a lot of misconceptions out there, like how they said that the Bahamas is high risk. No, it's not. Where Russia, a lot of people think Russia is high risk. Russia is somewhere up in here. I don't know, somewhere. A lot of people think Russia is high risk. Russia ain't high risk.
It used to be, right?
No.
No.
They were
Before
before.
further, Miss Bullen, a little bit more.
Okay, up here, somewhere.
Or the biggest up, one more,
Up here,
right there.
Right there. Look at Russia.
Okay.
They have a better rating than the Bahamas.
Yeah.
Okay, and before that, when we were 6.34, I think they were 6.24. But the perception is that Russia is high risk.
Yeah.
Okay, and so this is how you prove it. I had a lot of Russian clients argue with me that they could open up accounts with us because their country is not high risk. And that's the truth. However, your risk framework of your company is threefold. it's risk
Every-
appetite,
Yes.
it's risk assessment, and it's risk rating. So risk appetite means that, and this is the Canadian banks, they're very conservative. We don't do business with Russia. We don't care what their
Mhm.
country risk rating is.
Mhm.
Russia is not within our appetite. Okay, so they have a list of countries in their appetite that they don't do business with.
Not only country, but their frame of work too,
Yeah.
like certain line of work automatically,
Right.
they wouldn't. Just because of
Yeah,
that,
we
they
don't
wouldn't.
anything high risk. We don't do oil and gas. We
Yeah.
don't do the diamonds. We don't do PEPs, because PEPs are high risk. Okay, because we don't want, if 50% of our clients are from Russia, and then some are PEPs, that means overall my company is now high risk, and we are have to go through enhanced due diligence and higher fees too, and we don't want that. So just like Scotia and Royal and CIBC say, listen, we don't want no money service business. We don't make no money from them anyway, and they could cost us be high risk. We don't want no number house. They could cost us be high risk, so we just simply don't do business with them. We have another target market.
And one of
Okay.
the banks I worked to also, they didn't accept US persons. US.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but you know,
Yeah.
and I just want to tell you with all these and I think I told you all, with all of these risk ratings and international regulators and blacklisting, in terms of taxes, the US created FACA. They spent $18 million to update their IRS. And then when the rest of the world followed them and created CRS, the US said that we are non-reciprocal, which means that you must send them information or you are blacklisted and you go to jail. But they are not sending you any information.
No.
Wow.
Okay. So did the UAE. So did Cayman. And then our sister country, what it is, Turks and Caicos, that is still a UK colony, just don't even have a central bank. So they just completely blacklisted Turks and Caicos. So I remember when I was telling you all animal farms, some of us are equal, but some are more equal than others.
Yeah, Miss Bullet, I'm training a lady from TCI now, Turks and Caicos. And she was telling me how they do a stimulus package where they get $1,000
$1,000 for what?
because of the economy, you know, what's going on with COVID and all of that. They get so it's like a stimulus thing where they got $1,000. Like she got $1,000 last week because of the economy. And she's like, do y'all get stimulus packages? And I was like, Miss, what you talking about? I said some people get $40 meal voucher.
Did you know that in the UK and in America during the pandemic they got like $2,000
I know
a month and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, a UK colony is completely blacklisted. Turks and Caicos, so they don't have none of these 40 recommendations in place and whatever, and it's fine because that's the little island where UK is to their dirt, and then somebody protecting Cayman could say that we are non-reciprocal. The UAE, and then of course big bad America, but you don't see them like they green. You see that, right? They green. Okay, so yeah, but there's only a small country. So these laws are for the countries that can't defend themselves. Look at Africa, all over Africa, they blacklisted.
Ms.
Okay,
Bullen,
so, yeah.
how you get to this live view here? Are you trying to navigate? Are you trying to get? How did you get
Look,
this
just
particular
put
screen?
Basel AML index.
Oh, just click.
And then yeah, let me show you. So this would should come up, or it's the first page, it comes up. Then you scroll down and then put visit Basel AML index website. And then if you want the map or just the ratings. And so in your institution, you just should have these ratings.
So, Ms. Pollard, even though the gambling is legalized, Scotiabank and Royal Bank, they still refuse to accept the monies from the gaming houses?
Yeah, because of the cash intensity. It's because they're too cash intensive and because of legal. So yeah, you always have to find out the reason why. So yeah, fix for
So
that.
basically, they don't have no confidence in the government AML framework then.
No, no, and it'll cost their institution to be high risk.
High risk, yeah.
Yeah, and so they invested in some. They probably have some PEP accounts where they make good money from them. Like they are probably a large sector of the PEP, so they can't have PEPs and money service businesses and gaming houses, so they just stay away from them. So the fix for that is now the sand dollar. If you could convince the gaming houses to go cashless, then they wouldn't be unbanked, because right now they are still considered unbanked.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kenya.
No, I just was saying, like, they even stay away from you bringing the proceeds, like, if you win, because I work with Scotia, if you win and that receipt is your source of funds, we still don't accept your cash. So they completely.
Right, but if they became cashless and used the sand dollar, would the Canadian banks then open accounts for them and they would no longer be unbanked?
Now, well, that part I can't say. I guess it would.
So start to have the conversation, because that's what needs to happen. That's like the quickest fix. That's the quickest fix. Or unless Sebastian get this banking license and open his own bank, him or the next guy, Flowers, I supported 100%.
Flowers, I think did it.
Yeah.
Was trying to.
Yeah. So I supported 100% because, you know, I teach customer service and marketing, and we always do an analysis of, you know, Royal Bank has been around from 1908, more than 100 years in the Bahamas, Scotia more than 60 years in the Bahamas, and Sabas and Flowers have done more investment for the community. It far supersedes what both Royal and Scotia has done, and they
Wow,
are
that's
billion
powerful.
dollar, they are billion-dollar companies. So we need somebody who is for the Bahamas, and then slowly but surely, it seems like they are exiting. So at least we know Sabas money staying in the country. He is interested in the community. They are regulated now, so I support it 100%. It'll be for payments. Yeah.
But Miss Pollard, you don't agree on investors coming in only for a certain time and leaving, or you prefer for them to come and stay?
No, I believe, okay, in Cayman,
right.
I don't know if it's only, okay, Cayman has 60,000 people and 30,000 work permits. However, you can only stay for 7 years, no matter what, and after that you're revoked. You can't come back, right? The Bahamas policy immigration law is that when we bring in expats, you are to train a Bahamian within 3 years and then you are to leave. It's never been enforced. And so I believe there should be a time frame. However, we have not been able to enforce that. So we need to hire enforcers. Okay. We need to stop the corruption. And so if it can be managed, you could put all these laws in place, but if they ain't enforced or if they ain't managed, it don't make no sense. And as you can see now, the governments have been a little bit more serious because the Securities Commission has hired an analytics department, Central Bank has hired an analytics department, Compliance Commission, and I think Insurance Commission as well, I've been. Yeah, so we have the people who are educated and in place and to enforce, but there's no use putting these stuff on the books and never happening. Never. So that's what the Bahamas has a problem with, enforcement. So if the time can expire and it will be enforced, then I'm fine with it. But
that would be great.
Don't just write something down.
That would be great.
We have enough things written that don't work, just written there.
And if that can happen, we will start to see a change in our country towards the citizens.
There you go, because we've been clogged up for too long. Go ahead, Debbie.
I think because Royal and Scotia are Canadian based, that is almost like another jurisdiction. What about Commonwealth and Fidelity? Only bank I know I don't know if they updated it, was taking the funds was BOB.
Right, right.
The,
Again, it's because they can't afford to be so cash intensive. So you look at your portfolio, you look at your target market and where you make the money. The Commonwealth Bank credit department is
Consumer.
90% government. And so that
Expensive.
alone makes them high risk. Because your target market is the government, you know? And so if
So
they
why would they
want
be
to
considered
not,
high risk?
sorry?
Why would they be considered high risk?
Because the most corruption is done through,
In
through the
government.
government.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, and
right.
perhaps politically exposed persons are automatically high risk.
Yeah.
Right. So Commonwealth Bank can't really take on anything else. And I understand now they are taking cryptocurrency payments. And so that too will make them high risk. So we ain't taking no number houses, and we ain't taking no, because we ain't gonna make as much money as we making from the government as well as the crypto payments.
But Ms. Bullard, all of the Bahamian banks are targeting government workers only.
Yeah, but about
Most of them
percentage,
are
a percentage.
Commonwealth.
Yeah, Commonwealth Bank have like 90% government.
But what about the credit unions?
Again, the credit union don't have a diversified product and service. So you have to look at your books. You know what I mean? And see where you make the money. And they say, okay, we have 5 high-risk products and service. We have to eliminate 3 in order for this bank not to be high risk. Because if the bank is high risk, you have subjected now to being reviewed annually, making assessments annually. And now the regulators are saying we're going to tie your risk rating to your audits. My God, an audit is already take 6 months. You can imagine being audited every year. Our audit costs $150,000 if Deloitte & Touche coming in. You see what I mean? And so everybody running away from being high risk. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So risk, right? So in this risk assessment that has to be sent to the regulator in accordance with how whether your institution is high, medium or low. And again, that just came out in 2019. The regulators made it mandatory. They got it, but they didn't even get back to the industry yet. They didn't even set it up yet because they just hire all their people. Their people still new and trying to catch up with all the changes in the laws. Okay, but in this risk assessment, you want to look at criminal risk, reputational risk, legal risk, concentration risk, compliance risk. And let me just give you an example. My institution I work for held an account with Antigua and Barbuda, the government of Antigua and Barbuda. It was our biggest account, and we had, I think, $550 million. And both the central bank and their government said that it was too concentrated, which meant that if the bank failed, then the government of Antigua and Barbuda would fail. So they said, take out half of that $550 million and send it to another country, because we don't want you to entirely lose. So that's concentration risk. Like you have all your eggs in one basket. Okay, so in your risk assessment, you document all these various types of risks and how you mitigate it, what ensures that you don't suffer reputational risk, and if you do, what is your plan? What ensures that you're not too concentrated? What you could do if you have somebody bring a court case before you? What would you do? Okay. And then for this risk assessment, organizations created 3 lines of defense. And so the first line of defense was the front office and the managers. The second line of defense is compliance. The third line of defense is audit. Okay, all of those lines of defense are to protect the institution against risk. Okay, the last thing I want to show you is corruption perception. Each country, as well as whether they are risk rated as high, medium, or low, there's a corruption perception index. And I think anything over 45 Anything, sorry, below 45 is considered high risk. So if you're above 45 and closer to 100, you're considered in good standing in terms of corruption. And see, Belgium in good standing, Austria, Australia, we're not so bad. We have a 64% rating. And let me just, it doesn't have to be something in the financial sector. When Hurricane Maria happened, Puerto Rico was an outlying island of the US, or is an outlying island of the USA. And Donald Trump was president. He did not support Puerto Rico. And so therefore, the international regulators thought that Puerto Rico was susceptible to being bribed, or, corruption. Drug dealers might have come in and say, listen, you take this money into your banking sector and we go put this light back on for you, since Donald Trump don't want to do it. So, they may get offers they can't refuse. The mayor, they felt like the mayor was kind of desperate and would take money from anybody to, get the country back up and running. And so their corruption perception as a threat to the mayor, they just took them off the list and placed them to the side. So for a little while, banks, we couldn't transfer money to Puerto Rico. Okay, so it doesn't have to be something, it can be an event. And that was a hurricane. And I know we had Dorian, and people were laughing at ministers and saying, oh, he borrowing money, this or that, but you have to get the country back, you have to feed the people, you have to have housing for those people. You don't want your government to become desperate, okay, and just take money from drug dealers. Okay, and so let me give you another example of corruption perception. I had accounts out of Russia and Madagascar, and I used to pay salaries for this company. Every week I paid salaries, and one week this was in 2018, I paid the salaries as normal. I paid a school fee, I paid an insurance, and there was no issue. The next week, my correspondent bank said, we no longer have an appetite for countries that have a corruption perception index less than 30. So I said, okay, but I have to pay these salaries. They said, their customer will have to find another way to pay their staff today. I say, but no warning. They say no. And so let's look at these countries that are less than 30. Let's look. That means the correspondent bank has blocked them out. And this Lebanon, when they had the bombings, the Lebanese prime minister had spoke out against Netanyahu and Donald Trump are bosom buddies. So they put all sorts of sanctions against Lebanon. And I had a Lebanese customer that lives in Spanish Valley, Lutra. And I used to pay his bills for him every week. And when after Lebanon was bombed, and Donald Trump sanctioned him just because he said he accused, Netanyahu, the president of Israel, of bombing, I couldn't even pay his car insurance. I couldn't even buy him groceries because everything was blocked because he had a 11-year passport and he had been living in Spanish Wells for 10 years. Okay, so this is the net effect of being from these countries. Madagascar, I couldn't pay the salaries. That company almost shut down trying to find an account on the way to get cash. Okay, Russia. I think Russia is 29. So just again, this comes from Transparency International. So it's not only whether your country is high, medium, or low, it's also your corruption perception index. The correspondent banks block you out, and nobody walks into the bank in the offshore world. Like how you walk into Royal or Scotia or Commonwealth. In the offshore world, everything is done through a correspondent bank. Everything is done by transfer. Okay, is that clear?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
you
wow.
see Russia, and Russia was 1 point below 30, and this was 218 now, not before the war. And I'm surprised that they still have the same rating up, and now that the war has started, they should have dropped this to like 10 to make sure nothing slips through the cracks. But nevertheless, okay. Okay, good. So sorry.
Ms. Pollard,
Yes,
Where exactly you getting this rating from? Where?
this is Transparency International.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
Transparent.
so
Okay.
World Economics or Transparency International. And just put in Corruption Perception Index. They refer to it as CPI index. But there's a Consumer Protection Index that comes up as well. So you have to spell it out. Just Google, pull up the Consumer Index first. Okay? Any questions? We good? We clear?
When you were saying about sending funds, are you talking about wire transfers?
Yeah, wire transfers.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So the next week I couldn't pay the salaries. Imagine the people being to work the whole week looking for their little, imagine suppose they was monthly government employees. You know, they would have walked off that man job, right?
Yep.
You couldn't know them for no months, and it was a country problem. Okay, no warning, nothing. Okay, but when we get to you know, risk starts off a little bit cloudy, but when we get to intermediate, there are 4 chapters on risk. So don't worry if it's kind of cloudy now. You get it, you know, you eventually get used to it. And it comes, you know, it becomes clear. Okay, so risk-based approach. All right. Clear as mud?
Yep. Okay.
Okay. All right, guys. Okay, so no questions on chapter 5. We'll go to chapter 6. You're too quiet, child. I can fall asleep. You want to keep this pull it up?
No.
I can fall asleep right in the middle of this chapter 6.
I trying to I am trying to actually grasp everything, to put it a part of me, to try my best to not memorize it, but to have it to be a part of me. So yeah.
Okay, good. Like I said, it becomes clear.
Chapter, let's go there.
It becomes clear. Okay, so we're gonna go on to chapter 6. Okay, so very popular question on the exam, statutory requirements. Okay, so there are 5 statutory requirements, and that means they're required by law. So if you're licensed in the financial services sector, there are 5 things that must be implemented and in place in policy. Okay, and that is, you must identify your customers, you must keep records, you must train your staff, you must monitor, and you must have an MLRO on staff. Okay, and so these are required by law to prevent reputation risk, to preserve the veracity of the banking system, and to complement the bank's risk management strategy. Okay, so all of us should be familiar with the statutory requirement of identification, which means when you walk into the bank, you must identify your customers. Now, the law only requires you to get 1 piece of ID. However, your policy can be more stringent than the law. It can be less stringent than the law. Okay, and so you would find in the Canadian banks, they try to put in conditions for you know, human error. In the Swiss banks, the law is a waste of time. They trying to hamper you from making money, and they don't have time for it. Okay, so they want 1 piece, and sometimes they'll take none. You know, because they don't want to lose that business. But the law says you must get at least 1 piece of ID. So you go in a Royal Bank, they want 2 pieces. Okay, and common problems with that piece of ID is that there are a lot of aliases. We don't when we see William, we say Bill or Bill. When we see Robert, we say Rob, you know, and all sorts of stuff. Then we can't spell. We don't spell properly. So as we watching Dirty Money, if we know that Robin McPhee has a hit against her, we could spell Robin backwards, so, or we could put one wrong letter in there, so when World Check scans that night, it doesn't send a hit against Robin's name. So all sorts of funny things that we do to help these customers stay below the radar. Okay, so that's very important. However, that passport name is spelled. You need a fourth eye to check, because if you don't make that mistake, it's very hard for you to pull up, pick up that mistake. So make sure a second person, you are the preparer or the inputter into the system, somebody else is approving or somebody else is verifying. Okay, so make sure that name is correct, and you verify
Ms.
that
Bullock,
person's identity. Yes, Eddie?
question, which is the fifth one? You said the first one, identification, record keeping, monitoring, and reporting MLRO. That's the 5 statutory. What's the 5th statutory requirement?
Identification, record keeping, training,
What,
monitoring.
training?
Yeah, training is
I don't
required.
see training. I don't see.
You don't see training?
I don't see training in the book.
Oh, you don't see training in the book, sweetie pie. Look on page 43. My book say 43, so look between 42 and 43.
Okay. All right. Oh yeah, I see it. Sorry. Training.
Yeah, okay, so identification. Now, if you work in the offshore world, what I realized recently is you have to use their alphabet. So if you have Russian clients, I had a case where I used the American, I said, okay, this man name is Dimitri, Dimtri. So I put that in Word Check to scan his name to see if he was, had any hits, like any money laundering charges. Nothing came up. But then I looked in his passport and I saw that his name was spelled Dymtor, okay, in the Russian alphabet. And you would not believe, I got like 5 hits against his name. Okay, so when you deal with countries, when you deal with Latin America, when you deal with French names, you need to use their alphabet, because sometimes it does not show up. We automatically take English, and we will allow people to infiltrate our system because we just used to the English alphabet. Okay, so that's an important thing that Ms. Bullitt just learned. Okay, use their alphabet. And then linking customers is also important. In Latin American countries, as well as in Russian countries, women take on a feminine tone, which is, I think, SH, and men take on CH, or which is masculine, which is vice versa. So I had a father being charged with money laundering, but I wasn't able to identify that was his daughter, because his daughter's name was spelled with SH and his own was spelled with CH. Okay, so make sure if you work with, like I say, with countries, look at the alphabet, look at how women and men are classified. All of this will help you, because that's how a lot of them stay under the radar. They come to English speaking countries and they know that we will only check the English versions of their names. Okay, the law goes on to talk about a natural person. Okay, back in the day before 218, we had a lot of company accounts where the shareholders registry said Bullitt and Co. Okay, and we accepted that as the shareholders. But Bullitt and Co could be in Bullitt and Van Laden. Okay, so there always has to be a natural person. And if you get a registry that says ANCO, you have to ask them, is there another agreement? Is there a nominee agreement that tells us that Bullitt and Co is Mrs. Bullitt and Miss Carla Stewart? And if they don't, then you have to say, well, I cannot open this account. To the end of your verification, you must be natural persons. Okay, so full and correct name, 2 or more names of contacting the customer, date and place of birth, purpose of account, and nature of the business relationship. Okay, all of that is part of getting the person's identity. Sorry, Ms. Forbes?
Ms. Pollard, but in the identification process, with them requiring 2 identifications, but using the passport, you wouldn't have to actually go and probably Google or look up the country alphabet of the name. You could just use, most places they would require, well, like their passports.
Right, but what I'm saying is, two forms of ID is what Royal Bank and the Canadian banks ask for. In the Swiss bank, the law only requires one, so they only ask for one. And most of these countries have identification cards that are written in English or driver's licenses, right? And that's what they accept in the Swiss bank. And so they have the English written, the words, the name written in English.
Even in the foreign country's passport?
That's why I say, in the absence of a passport, you don't always get
Oh,
the passport.
okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
in
okay.
the absence
All
of the
right.
passport. Yeah, and then the Swiss banks only ask for the one piece of ID because that's all the law asks for. The Canadian banks ask for two because they never want to be in trouble with the regulators. So they ask for more because they know human error. If they ask for one, human error will get none. I go open this account, you will bring that back, and you never bring it back. Oh, yeah, that's what has happened. But I mean, we are much better at it now. But in the Swiss banks, sorry, Ferguson, you said something?
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, so the yes.
Yeah, I have a question. I heard you doing about World. You say y'all do your searches on WorldCat or
World Check or LexisNexis.
LexisNexis. Okay, with LexisNexis, what is there a particular? I know they have multi-services company. Which particular product of LexisNexis y'all use? I know they, which.
It depends on what you want. They have various platforms, Eddie, and so you can have normal basic name search, or you could you want name search and sanctions. You want name search and so it just depends on what all products and services you want to add it to your platform, and then you are charged for each different one.
Oh, okay. So they have because I know they do. I know they're more familiar with doing cases and.
Yeah. So if you want the case study part of it, some banks have their own system. It just depends. I worked at an institution that they use WorldCheck for everything. They didn't use LexisNexis. Another one used LexisNexis for everything.
Okay, it's called WorldCheck.
Yeah, Thomson Reuters. And they have
WorldCheck.
Yeah, you could go on YouTube and you could look at the different capabilities of their system. Pull up Thomson Reuters WorldCheck. But see, when you're doing enhanced due diligence is the extra steps that you take to verify that company or that person. And so we use WorldCheck only for low and medium. For high risk, we use WorldCheck and LexisNexis and Google searches. Then we also
LexisNexis?
Yeah, LexisNexis, WorldCheck, and then we did a Google search on the name. Then we used a company called Proximal that works with Interpol, and they go into your country and they do a full report on you, and they charge $1,500 a person. And so if you are a high risk customer, we tell you, if you pay that $1,500, then we'll open the account for you. And so once that Proximal report came back, then we opened the account for you. And so that was how we carried out enhanced due diligence. It's up to your company how they decide to carry out enhanced due diligence. So there's no one size fits all approach. It may not be necessary. We dealt with Venezuela and Russia, so that was necessary. But if you're a very conservative bank and you don't deal with high risk countries, you might not have to go to that extent. Okay. So yeah, back to again, nationality and citizenship is a different argument Ms. Bulletin going into. Signatures, you want those documents to be certified, and you want it to be certified in English. When we audited, we found that a lot of the information was in Mandarin. We couldn't verify, like Rodney Monka is a JP. If that Mandarin, we can't verify him. We couldn't certify that he was actually an actual certifier or registered one, so they have a number. So you want to make sure that anybody who certifies these documents, you know, they have a registration and a number that you can follow through, because we found a lot of our Spanish documents were fraudulent documents. They had all the certification and everything on them. So make sure everything is in English that you can verify, or you have it translated. And there's a list of suitable persons who can now verify. Okay, I've been to a couple of meetings that were held by the regulators that they said across the board, across the industry, account opening documents are gravely deficient. Okay, because in the offshore world, Royal Bank's account opening package was 45 pages. Okay, and there were different places to sign, different places to put the address, 5 different addresses in there. Okay, because this person live in the Bahamas, but they have a vacation home in Maui, and so they use all the addresses. Okay, and then the address did not match what was written. Okay, so you want to make sure whoever the salespeople are not good at filling out, but they meet with the customer. So let the salespeople meet, but then there must be a verification department on onboarding department to check back to make sure everything works and makes sense. Right now, the credit unions and various banks, in order for source of income, they are asking you for a job letter. We are saying we received the job letter, never reading it. The job letter say Trevor Morley works for government. He make $2,000 a month, but we letting him say that he could deposit 10,000 a month, and we ain't asking Trevor where he getting it out of 8,000 from. So we are not corroborating the information that we receive. Okay, you have to make sure that it makes sense. If he makes 2,000 a month, Trevor, where you get $8,000 from, and you usually get paid once a month, but how you can deposit every week? Okay, so we need to start to check these thresholds to make sure that they make sense and that these people could afford it. Okay, because this is how we determine a suspicious transaction. At identification, at onboarding, you create a profile. We cooperated. This profile makes sense. And when you go outside that profile, then we ask you to declare the source of funds or where you get this money from. You can't tell us, now it's unusual or suspicious.
Okay, Ms. Bullitt, I have a question. The board is the regulatory body for the casinos and the gaming houses, and observations from the compliance department, Ms. Cooper and Forbes probably could speak further on it, but my observations are that some of the patrons who walk into the gaming houses, initially they would state whatever their intended threshold is, whether weekly, monthly, I guess, based on their income. We've had numerous instances where a person would put $200, and if you check their account in a month's period, they are gaming well over like $1,000. As the regulatory body and not compliance in the casino or the gaming houses, what you are saying our obligation in compliance would be, we responsible for reporting that, or is the gaming?
Yes, what you were supposed to do is, okay, so first of all, when you all started, nobody understood what to do. So your records might be wrong. That's the first, right?
Right.
So now that all of us getting educated and we know what to do, we now have these customers risk rated high, medium, or low, right? And so that means if you risk rated low, every 3 years we check you. If you risk rated medium, every 2 years we check you. If you risk rated high, every year we check you, right? There should be a system in place that tells you that Ms. Bullitt has only been verified for $200 and now she up to 1,000. There should be a system. If there's no system, then you have to do it manually. Okay? So if you no system in the background saying Ms. Bullitt gone over a limit to tell you, and you need to now have a conversation with Ms. Bullitt and see if her forms are filled out correctly and verify her, then you have to speak to your institution. You now need to create a manual procedure if your system can't do it. But
okay,
because we know we ain't full them out properly, 2 years ago. Now we call Miss Bullet in. Miss Bullet, you get a new job. How come you could deposit? How come you gambling up to $500 now? And Miss Bullet might say, yeah, I get a new job. And you say, okay, Miss Bullet, bring in the job. If you all ask the job letters or whatever your process is, because it's already been approved by your regulator. And then you switch Miss Bullet account.
And you are saying that this is the board's regulation, recommendation?
No. The law says you must do this.
No, what I'm asking is, when you speak to calling the patron in, are you saying from the regulator's perspective, we are to call the patron in, or is that the responsibility of the compliance officer in the actual gaming house or casino?
Yeah, that's the responsibility in the gaming house.
Okay, so
the regulator don't get involved with your
that's what I was. Okay,
I just was about to say that.
That's what I was about to say.
The regulator will come in and audit you and say, Ms. Ferguson, what happened to your customer Callister? How did you allow it to go up to this? And there's no documentation.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That is always our recommendations.
Yeah.
But like Ms. Bullard, like you say, see, they don't have, if the operators don't have system in place for them to know that, okay, this customer has went over their threshold or their intended amount of deposits. So
Forbes, what you mean they don't have system in place?
They have it.
Buy a system or do it more manually. Hire enough people to buy it.
Yes, what they do assess, they risk assess once. They only assess annually once a year. And
okay, so that once a year when they do their assessment, they had to print out the history of that person's account and put it on the file or save it in the system. And they had to look manually through it to say, did Ms. Bullet go over $200? Yes. We need to call Ms. Bullet in and declare the source of funds.
Yeah.
Okay, their initial activity was supposed to be, say, $200 a week. But you see where they have exceeded that within the first month. So by the time that year then roll over, they've well exceeded that threshold activity. So what happens in a case like that?
Forbes, again, like I say, 2 years ago, we didn't know what we was doing. So the form's probably incorrect. If Ms. Bullock could bring in a job letter or proof that she earns this money legitimately, then you fine. But if Ms. Bullock say I unemployed, then that's a red flag. So we don't want to automatically assume that people are money laundering. Okay, they are honest people that go outside their threshold.
They have on applications where someone would fill out an application saying that their occupation is a cashier. Most cashiers probably make minimum wage. But
no, don't assume.
I'm assuming I'm saying most.
Bring in the pay stubs. Don't assume.
Yeah, they don't ask for pay stubs.
But what do you do for the source of funds?
Whatever they declare.
Whatever they declare, they say that. Right.
They're not required to bring in. They're not required to bring in a job letter.
No.
So how do you? If I say I can deposit $10,000 a month, you all don't ask where the money coming from?
It's not even us.
I mean, the operators. That's the responsibility is on them.
Right.
No. Well,
now
then
we would make recommendations as a part of.
Yeah, gaming is a little different than the regulator had to approve their framework. And like I said, it was new. The bank been getting it wrong from 2004, so y'all don't feel bad. And we had enough practice over the years, and then we finally got it 22 years later. So you all only been from 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. You all
and the law isn't really enforced.
Right,
no,
and it's right. So
really
what y'all need to start to do now that y'all are educated, y'all need to look at other industries. And we normally copy everything from the Netherlands or from Cayman. So see what they are doing in the Netherlands and in Cayman, and then perhaps implement it here, because you can't, there's a gap right now where you could deposit any amount. But y'all have to get to a point where if Ms. Bullet says I'm going to be depositing $5,000 a month, y'all got to verify that I actually make that $5,000 legitimately.
Exactly.
Right. Or y'all really, suspicious transactions ain't make no sense because y'all ain't verify. But even if y'all verify me and I go up to 10,000, that's unusual. You call me on the phone and say, Miss Bullet, did you get a job increase? And I say, no, my Grammy died and leave me an inheritance, and I bring it to the number house. Okay,
don't
bring
do
me a
that.
copy of the will. Bring me, I sold a piece of property. Bring me a copy of the piece of property. Okay?
None of that. None of
Yeah.
that's required.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, but see, the regulator has to implement it, and the industry is still growing. And so that's where they'll go to. So that's why I say, look at what is happening in the Netherlands. But the Bahamas is copy all the Netherlands law,
Okay.
all the Cayman law. Cayman, if something need to change, Cayman on it right away. I talking with the law out the next day. The Bahamas, 10 years later, the law come in. Okay, so look at those jurisdictions, look at Luxembourg as well. Those are the 3 jurisdictions. We copy so much law from the Netherlands. The other day, somebody win a case because instead of changing it to the Bahamas, in our law, we even wrote it in the Netherlands. We just paste it. We didn't change from the Netherlands to the Bahamas.
That's that copy and paste you talking about?
Yes, and that person won their case on a technicality because of that.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how serious our copy and paste is. But yeah, so the industry, the regulator now needs to do research and put something in place to verify that these people can afford to gamble legitimately to these amounts. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, so back to corporate clients. I already said there must be a natural person, Bullet and Co, because that can be Bullet and Bin Laden. You get your memo and ads. You get your board resolution. I agree that this account can be open. Again, the law used to say you must verify anybody who owns 25% of shares or more. And people started to say they own 24 and 23%. Now they decrease it that you must verify anybody who owns 10%. And people saying that they own 8%. All of that to stay below the radar. So I see all of that as a red flag. So I still is check if Trevor only owns 6%. I trying to get as much information on Trevor as possibly. But I can't make him bring in his ID. I can't make him, but I just say, send me all IDs for everybody on the account. And sometimes they'll just slip Trevor one in. Or I'll get enough information about Trevor to be able to just Google him and just say, I verified him, because why you own 6% of a company and everybody else own 25 and 30%? Okay, so yeah, look out for stuff like that. And so again, you want to corroborate the information. When they say I get deposit every week, make sure they're getting paid every week, or they collecting rent every week, or they have where this money coming from, it must be verified. If they bring in 3 years of financials, you have to make sure that the bank is profitable, okay, or that company is profitable. It's no sense opening up an account if they're expensive, they exceed the money, their revenues. Okay, so corroborate the information that you get. An example of where somebody went outside of their threshold. Brent Simonet declared in the election that he had $56 million. 5 years later, he declared that he had 156 million. So of course everybody was going crazy. I told you all this story already, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so you all know he got that money. Okay, so it was legitimate. So don't automatically assume that your customer had done something wrong. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Look at the file and say, did we fill this out properly 2 years ago? No. So let's update. If we don't have a system that alerts us, then we have to print out the history and go through it manually. You can't just say, I ain't do it. Okay? Because you get source of funds for low and medium accounts, and you get source of wealth for high risk accounts. Okay? And then the statutory requirement of record keeping, you must keep all these records for 5 years. Okay? If you report to the central bank. The Securities Commission say 7 years. If you have dual reporting, you keep it for the longest period, which is 7. The Canadian banks will keep it for 10 because, again, human error. They don't want to shred or get rid of something in error. The Swiss banks, they're keeping it for 5 years on the dot. Okay, so like I said, it just depends on what industry you work in. Debbie, you have a question? No?
I thought I lowered my hand.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so just keep all the records and make sure they are stored properly. A lot of people have an inexperienced person, entry-level person in their filing room. That creates a nightmare. You have to be very disciplined. It's a very tedious job, filing and storage. I would hire a senior person to manage those because you have to come up with these records 5 and 7 years. And if they're not stored properly or filed properly, you have a big, big, big problem. Okay, so please have a responsible person who doing the filing properly. Just when these files out of order and these stuff missing, oh, that's a headache. And that can be a problem, and there's a fine attached if you don't have proper records. Okay, and then you can't properly assess these people if things ain't filed properly and documents are missing. Okay, if nobody is keeping track of an expiry date, how are you doing an assessment if all the documents you know, missing or expired? Okay, then there's the statutory requirement of training. New employees should get general information on money laundering and terrorist financing. Employees dealing directly with the public should focus on the issues that arise from suspicious transactions. Account opening officers, training should be the same as those dealing directly with the public. If you work in the wiring department, everybody else is required 1 annual training. If you work in corresponding banking or the wiring or the SWIFT department, you are required to have 2 trainings per year. Okay, so make sure that you know that. And again, the FIU, the Financial Intelligence Unit, they put in a ad in the paper each year. If any person has not been trained in the financial services industry by January 30th for the prior year, they will be charged $10,000 per day per person. Okay, so gone are the days when you're hiding from the compliance officer and you can't show up training, you missed this and you missed that. No, the regulator now wants to see what you were trained on. They want to see persons sign, acknowledge that the training was done and acknowledge that they understand. And the other day they said, Ms. Bullitt, send us a copy of your test. And I said, test? I do no test. And I had to hurry up, create a test and do a test for the entire organization. Okay, so it has to be tested to make sure that the people understand. And anybody below 70% had to retake that test. Okay, so make sure. Statutory requirement of monitoring. Again, each client should be risk rated high, medium, or low. And which means that if you're risk rated low, every 3 years we are to monitor you. Okay, and that means we are to check the frequency, the amount, account signatories, and your transactions. Okay, and if the system doesn't do it, we print out a form, we print out the history, and we look through it manually. Okay, and there has to be a procedure in place on what we do to check for suspicious transactions and training on what do we consider unusual. Okay, so everybody will be on the same page. You're required to monitor. And in most institutions, client reviews are backed up for years. Nobody ever checked. Okay, but you need proper metrics in place, and you need each officer assigned to a certain amount of clients. Nobody can know clients. And the premise of all of this is in the financial services, you're required to know our clients, KYC, know your clients. Okay, and so if you have 800 clients, you are to risk rate them high, medium, or low. If you have 100 high risk, a senior person must be assigned to the high risk. And if you have low and medium, a junior person could be assigned to that, to the lower medium, and probably have 1 high risk customer just for practice, or probably 5. But senior person should deal with the high risk, and they should be monitoring each year annually. And it must be split. You can't have more than 100 clients if you are required to know them, if they are very transactional. Okay, so the proper metrics need to be in place for this to be able to work, for you to be able to know this client. Okay, when we were monitoring, we saw that Brave Davis' daughter got married. This guy now is a pet. And so we had to call him on the phone and say, hey, anything substantial to you? He said, yes, I got married. We said, oh, congratulations. Anybody we know? Brave Davis, the Prime Minister's daughter. Ding, 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 ding. You are now a PEP. If PEP was outside of the organization's risk appetite, we would have had to say, I'm sorry, we have to de-risk you and close your account. But luckily, PEPs was in our appetite. So we said, we didn't tell him we had to change this risk rating because we don't normally discuss risk rating with the client. But internally, we discussed it and we had to reassess him, and now he was considered high risk. Okay, so that's the purpose of the client reviews, because things change after clients open up accounts. They get promotions, they lose their jobs, they marry PEPs. So you have to keep abreast because you are required to know your client.
Question. In an instant that instant you described, does the bank have an electronic way to set off flags or alarms if his activities were to drastically change?
Yes, the bank, it depends from bank to bank. Banks have very savvy systems that you could put an entire profile in the system, and if you go outside the profile, it'll alert you. Most banks have just a transactional system that'll say his profile, he should not go over 5,000, and now he up to 10,000. So the next day you get a report. So it just depends on what system your bank has. So you have to go and find out and understand how it works. Or your institution, go find out, understand it works, and understand if you have to do something manually. And if you have to, you better know how to explain it to the regulator. Well, I don't know.
That's exactly, I think, what I would be tasked with.
Yeah.
I'm actually in technical compliance at the board. So
Okay.
I just wanted to know in terms of the type of system, when I would think about putting mechanisms in place for the, well, I'm pretty sure we won't have that kind of issue with the casino, because theirs is usually a complex system that we have full access to. But this new gaming industry with the gaming houses that we are venturing into, we actually have to more or less work hand in hand with the operators, even as regulators, in an effort just to make it make complete sense.
Right. So start to source a system. There are lots of systems out there. There are a lot of smaller. Each country has a lottery. Only the Bahamas give it to 7 people. It's a Florida lottery, is Ohio lottery, all these different places. And so they have smaller casinos, and start to have the conversation. And this is why you need to go out to seminars and stuff like that, and start the source so you can help the industry find out what is the best system for them to use. So you could start with Google and then see what systems are out there, because there are a lot of people developing systems now that, a lot of banks develop systems for other banks to use, and Thompson check LexisNexis, check Thomson Reuters, or just ask your colleagues, and like I say, check to see what came and would they use it.
Okay.
So this is the importance of networking, and then recommend it to the industry, because you can't do it manually forever. And when you have so much clients, it just becomes ineffective.
No, with where technology is now, it's ludicrous to think.
Yeah. So there are applications out there. You just have to see which one is the best one, for your industry to use. One that the industry will understand, and the regulator. Because remember, now we watched Dirty Money, where we saw that Volkswagen was able to defraud the world because they had a system that nobody knew how to use. Okay, so be careful, but start to do your research. Okay,
Thank you.
Yeah, it's difficult to do it manual. Yeah, but and then like I say, when something happens, you have to explain how are you monitoring. You can't explain that you go to jail. Then what did the regulators do? When all the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac failed, the guy who won the oh, what do you call it? The prize with Donald Trump who did want. You know those prizes that you win.
Nobel?
Sorry?
It wasn't the Nobel Peace?
Yeah,
Or-
the guy who won the Nobel Peace Prize, he commented about the banks and the failure of Freddie Mae and Fannie Mac, where the regulator was, what they do, how did they allow this to happen? Why they didn't stop it? Okay, so make sure as the regulator, you make recommendations and you give advice and you put as much detail out there for the industry to not fail. Okay, so then the statutory requirement of the MLRO, the money laundering reporting officer, of course, we know it's a regulated function. That means it has to be approved by the regulator. They go and do this background check and they make sure that you're qualified, sufficient experience as well as sufficient education. The MLRO, you can't get your license if you don't have an MLRO on staff. They decide, they receive SDRs, they evaluate them, they check, and they send them out to the FIU for further investigation. Okay. The MLRO is expected to act honestly and reasonably and to make determinations in good faith. Okay, so that's your 5 statutory requirements: identification, record keeping, training, monitoring, and the MLRO required by law. Okay, any questions? No? Okay, let's go on to simplified and enhanced due diligence for you who will say, what Miss Bullet talking about? You know, but again, you all should have read this already, so you all should at least know the terminology. Okay, so simplified due diligence is normally carried out for, and this is a popular question on the exam as well, but person always get confused. So please listen attentively so you can understand this. So simplified is normally carried out for low risk and medium risk clients. Enhanced due diligence is carried out on PEPs and high risk customers. Okay, and so simplified means that, you know, I'm just going to get the identification documents. I'm going to world check this customer, and then perhaps the compliance can approve these customers, the compliance officer. If this person turns out to be a high risk customer, I've already done those first 3 steps, but now I must do further steps to verify this person. Okay, because they are high risk. And so in my further steps, I can not only do the world check, but I can do a check on LexisNexis. So that's a second check. I can do a third check on Google and just Google their names. If they are from also a high-risk country, I can request a proximal report and charge them $1,500. Okay. I will now not only let the compliance officer approve, but I will write up a report and I will let the compliance committee approve. And if this person turns out to be politically exposed, then I'm going to let the board approve. Okay, so simplified means, you know, the initial steps that we take to onboard a customer. Enhanced means like the extra steps that we take to onboard a customer. Okay, so you really want to do a chart to say, show the extra steps that you took to onboard that customer. Okay, and so the book goes on to talk about what, you know, the central bank guidelines and what they allow. There is also that an exempted category that falls under the simplified due diligence, where they say if you're a regulated company you can be subjected to simplified due diligence. Your insurance company, a broker dealer, investment fund, if you report on the stock exchange, you can also be exempted. Trevor, you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. Can you repeat? Okay, you said enhanced due diligence, the categories. PAPs fall under that, right? And what else you said?
Yes. PAPs, corresponding bank, bearer shares, yeah, those types of accounts all fall under high risk accounts. So all of those types of accounts, you have to carry out enhanced due diligence, and that's the extra steps that you will take. So you've already done the simplified due diligence, but you realize that this person is high risk. So now you're going to let the committee approve. So there should be a compliance on an AML committee established. You let that committee approve. Then
Okay,
you'll
and-
perhaps get a proximal report. You'll do Google searches.
Right, and simplify for the regular customers.
Yeah, for the regular, low and medium. And
Okay.
just the compliance officer will approve. If there's a PEP, you let the board approve. You let the board confirm that we want Shane Gibson on our books, or the government of Solution, or the government of Angola on our books.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah. And so, like I said, the book said that, you know, if you are exempted, because you are regulated, that means the regulator would have verified you, and we have all their documents on file, so it's no use to put them through that process again. However, Royal Bank of Canada says, we don't care what the law says, we don't accept exempted accounts, okay? So I was at Royal Bank Trust, and when Trust had an account at retail, when my passport expired, they blocked the whole Royal Bank Trust account until I brought in my passport. Okay, so just, again, you can be more stringent than the law, you can't be less stringent. And that's how the Canadian banks work. But perhaps you, in the Swiss bank, Scotiabank came to open up an account with us. We didn't ask them for anything, no type of KYC. We only want your signatory list and the passports to verify these signatories. Okay, so it just depends on your internal bank's procedure. Okay. Yeah, so there are different categories on the risk rating. Like I say, form that would make you automatically high risk. Automatic high risk is corresponding banking. Automatic high risk is if you're a PEP. Automatic high risk is if you're a bearer share account. Okay, that means your shares are not registered, and the Bahamas does not issue bearer shares any longer, but we still have 1 or 2 countries that do, and they are allowed to open their account here. Okay, then the book goes on to talk about a politically exposed person, and who is a politically exposed person, and it says, of course, a close associate, a family member, an international organization, and they go on, a parent, a child, a spouse. So all of those persons are considered politically exposed. Now, the guidelines used to say 1 year after you demit office, but of course, when the law updated in 2018, they just removed it. And we got written up for not reassessing our PEPs, because we had 1 or 2 PEPs that had left office, and we just left them as, you know, medium risk. But we got a note from the central bank, and they said, but the law has changed and updated it. We said, but y'all didn't put a new law in place. And then they explained to us that they left it up to the industry to decide. So they wanted us to put in policy how we would verify our PEP. So we decided that 5 years after you left office, we no longer considered you a PEP if you were not on the campaign trail. Another institution decided 10 years. Okay, and so if previously you had this person had left office 1 year and you didn't list him as a PEP, like we had Perry Christie, and he had left office 2 years and we didn't list him as a PEP, they wrote us up and said, well, Perry Christie should have been reassessed. And now, because the policy has changed. So it's whatever's in your policy, audit is going to come in and verify. The regulators are going to come in and verify. Okay, common things that I've been seeing, at least ICA had a question, and remember I told you all, you know, there's no exam on the ICA side. There are 3 3,500 word questions, papers that have to be written. And one of the questions was describe a pet or give the definition of a pet. And so 3,500 words in just this paragraph. So people were very confused. But again, Thomson Reuters, WorldCheck wrote an article on the definition of a PEP. And what we found out is that a PEP's definition in Mexico is different from the PEP definition in the UK. Because in Mexico and in Russia and China and most of the communist countries, everybody who works for the government is considered a PEP. But in the UK, just like us, I think from permanent secretary and above are considered a PEP. Okay? And so you have to document that. So, because if you deal with Mexico and you have UK customers and Mexican customers, they have to be treated differently. Now, of course, the account is in the Bahamas and nobody wants a high risk book. So they'll say, well, we acknowledge that in the Mexico, this person would be considered a PEP, but he's just a maid in the Ministry of Finance or a nurse in the hospital. So we're not going to label him as a PEP because his account is in the Bahamas. But if the Mexican officials ever request this information, we are going to have to make a note that this is a Mexican PEP that they're requesting information on. So just to make a note that in different jurisdictions, PEP may have a different meaning, and you cannot just disregard the country law. Okay, that's if you're working offshore. Another common problem with persons don't realize is, I saw this out of Venezuela, where the majority of the businesses in Venezuela are through the oil company PDVSA. PDVSA is owned by the government. And if you have a joint venture with the government, if you have a government contract, in those communist countries, the government owns 60% and you own 40%. So whoever is the majority shareholder, then you fall under them. So that means if you have a business license or a business where the government is the majority shareholder, then your account is considered a PEP account. Okay? And of course, nobody wants to be a PEP because they don't want to be subjected to the annual reviews. They don't want to be subjected to the fees that come along with being a PEP. And so they try to, hide that they have any relation. So the other day I got an account and the guy said he's the head of an association reporting to the Prime Minister. Why would an association be like almost like urban renewal? I'm a director of this association, but I report to the Prime Minister. So I said, oh, well, that's a close associate. He's a PEP. Okay. Go ahead, Debbie Ann. Debbie, you have a question or no? No? Okay.
Sorry,
okay.
I forgot to unmute. Which country you said was the example of where the government had the majority shares?
Venezuela.
Venezuela. Okay.
Yeah, they normally don't give business licenses. The government owns the majority of the business and you own 40%. So that would be considered a PEP account. Okay, and this is why it's important to know your customer, because there's a lot of outside children in the Bahamas, and so you don't even know who is who, right? And a lot of people like especially the last name is different, they like to hide that my father or my mother is a PEP. All these ambassadors and we're getting all these positions, all their children and their wives and husbands are now PEP. So make sure you reassess these these 5 people on your books. Now you got to update them because they are now PEPs. Okay, and then some of them you may have to close out some of their accounts because institution doesn't have an appetite for PEPs, or you may have be up to the limit and the next PEP you add to your books will take you over into being high risk. And of course, no business wants to be high risk as well. So those are the conversations that you would have to have. Okay. Any questions on PEPs? Any questions on simplified or enhanced due diligence? Was it clear as mud? Do we understand, Ms. Bullitt, about the policy? You're already talking to me.
Yeah, it's clear.
All is clear.
Yeah.
I understand.
We're here.
Okay.
We're taking it all in.
Okay, great. So the important thing is to have whatever is documented or any function documented in policy. Okay, because like I said, the auditors as well as the regulators, they come in and they check your policy. Okay, and you want to make sure that there are no gaps between what the regulator expects versus what central bank, what your institution is doing. So your internal AML policy normally goes out to the regulator to be approved. Okay, and 1 year we get ours back and it say, this is missing section 10 of this act, section 5 of that act. Section is very, very, very tedious. There's something called a compliance legislative registry, where it tells you if you offer these products and services or have these types of customers, these are the policies you are to have in place in your organization. And so you match the two to make sure that everything in the legislation is in your policy internally and there are no gaps. And then you train your staff. But it's like I say, it's very important to understand your job function. It's very important to understand the policy and procedure that goes along with your job function. It's very important to identify what the regulator says and to make sure that your policy is not out of date. Because we can't stop the hackers and scammers. Only poor people is go to jail. And if we can't explain ourselves, we'll be right there in a scam that we'll be on dirty money being hauled off to the courts. Because the rest of them, the rest of them can afford to see you and we can't. Okay, so please protect yourself and know your job properly. And if something is missing, send your little email. This is missing. I noticed this deficiency, and this is a part of my function. And if they don't get to it, you send a second reminder. After a third reminder, you leave it with your manager. There's nothing you could do. You either find another job or you stay there and you hold on to that email tight. So when the police come, you can say, here it is, where I advised them, and they did nothing. And so therefore you clear. Okay? Okay, guys, clear as mud?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay, very good. So most of you seem to be on track. Now, what I can see happening now, for those who, most of you already have your newspaper, which is excellent, and look like everybody do question 2 for homework. But I only have 2 persons for the civic organization, and so we don't want the whole class overwhelmed next week. And I think next week is the last week even. I'm certain there's a deadline for your 5%. So next week, we'll only have 5 persons sharing that they're going to get their 5%, and the week after, which is a review class, 5 persons. So that's a total of 10. So please put up your hand now. If you plan to get your 5%, let me know, because we can't spend more than an hour in discussion. Okay, Rodney, your hand is up for a question or?
That's the civic organization one. Now, I could wait till next week to share, but I'm a part of Toastmasters, and I spoke to one of the club. So give me next week.
We'll get you in 5% now, because next week and the week after could be cloudy.
Oh, bro.
Everybody be needing that 5% after they see this review sheet. So go ahead.
You're supposed to invite us.
Go ahead, you can share, and if anybody, have to go ahead, you may leave. It's being recorded. You can request the recording, but you're not gonna miss nothing else. That's it on chapter 5 and 6. You break it, Rodney.
No?
That's a little better, yeah.
Yeah, so I spoke, next time I speak, I'll drop it in the chat, but this time I spoke is during the day, it's a additional day.
No, you're breaking up again, Rodney. I can't. Rodney, try fix your mic. You outside again, eh?
Hey, baby. You hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
All right, so short version. I spoke to online to a club in to a district in West Africa. I was a keynote speaker. They have something like a for new members. So all I did, I shared about my Toastmasters experience and just take the experience seriously and put that us into the program. I joined Toastmasters in 2014. I serve on different capacities, sorry, in leadership and at the district level. And my encouragement to anybody, actually, to Toastmasters or any civic organization, if you put yourself into it like at least 70-80%, you will see a return. And not just because that discipline will bleed over to other aspects of your life, especially your career. So Toastmasters for me was a great organization because it's self-development. And if you want to do something civic, like I'm not part of Kiwanis, but I've seen the work Kiwanis has done. I see Rotary first on, and then I'm a part of fraternity as well. So we do a lot of work with the community as well. Yeah, I said I'll drop some more. I did it last week. I'll drop some more this week for varying days. They have meetings probably every day, Monday to Friday, Monday to Thursday more. So if anybody get that 5, just join. But it's a pretty good organization.
Okay.
Sorry, Rodney, not to cut you off, but the link you had sent in, and when I tried logging on, I never got in. So I don't know.
So that happens again. So I can go from the president or the vice president, and I'll let you know.
Okay.
Okay, Rodney, and thank you too for sending out that invite. Because you know, most of us are timid, we don't want to go by ourselves. So thank you for sharing and inviting everybody. Okay. Okay. Telia, is your hand raised because you want to share next week or?
Yes, that's for next week, please.
Okay, so I'm putting you on the list, Telia, for
I raised my hand also, same here.
Robin McPhee.
Yes.
For next week.
Lakeisha Thurston.
Shanice Road for next week as well.
Okay.
Carla Scott as well.
Shanice. Okay, Demerit, what about you?
Next week, yes, ma'am.
Miss Bullard. Hello.
Yes.
Good afternoon. I want to share a bit now if I can.
Okay. Wait, let's just get everybody first.
Sure.
Everybody will be getting their 5%. Celia Forbes, Robin McPhee, Lakeisha Thurston, Cooper, Roll, Carla Stewart, and Demerit.
Lakeisha Ferguson as well, Miss Bullard, for next week.
Miss Bullard, did Darlene Johnson get her?
You shared that you went to a civic organization, Darlene?
No, ma'am.
No, I said for next week, okay?
Oh, so put you down for the, okay, so we can split yours now, because that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Me too, Miss Bullard.
Darlene.
And Natasha Curtis.
And Natasha, okay, and that's the 10 right there. So 5 next week and 5 the week after. That's it. That's it for the 5%. So I hope the rest of you all have sufficient points.
Thank you.
I can lead that point.
Everybody is needed. So now I see more hands. No.
I have to go to the I made appointment to go to the Kiwanis next week.
Yeah, I got one.
We were supposed to go this week from the Gaming Board, Miss Bullard, but we were blindsided with a training session that ended with a social. So we should have presented this week, but the board did it to us. And so please allow us until next week.
Okay, please.
Everybody
will go.
Miss Bullard, I used to be a part of Toastmasters, but because of other obligations, I wasn't able to keep up with that. But the experience is really good because, you know, you get to, I mean, it helped me with like, to be able to engage in public speaking and stuff like that. And networking with different people. So I already know what the experience is, you know, what to expect from it. But like I say, Because of our
Okay, so
obligations. I'm
Forbes,
part of it now.
you taking your gaming board group, I can make you responsible. You'll give me all the names next week and you'll tell me their takeaway from the meeting. And that's what you'll share on behalf of the, how much are you, 4 of you or 5 of you?
5.
5 of you at the gaming board. Okay, so Forbes will speak on behalf. So y'all attending together and y'all.
No, Ferguson is now an active member.
Lord, why do people still calling my name? Miss Bullard, I can give you a
We'll be
brief
attending her club. We'll be attending her
I would have
branch.
attended. Like I told you, I just did not commit at that time because I have a couple obligations. But at the meeting, I was actually a guest of a cousin of mine who passed. Her husband invited me. I sat through, and I think the funniest thing for me was also a part of the way that they build their finances, and that's through the silly fines that they imposed at the end of the meeting. You had people that were fined for talking too much, and then you had one person that was fined for actually not talking at all. So, but my greatest takeaway from Kiwanis was the community building initiative that they took in one of the smaller communities in Grand Bahama, which is West End and happens to be my hometown. What they did was implement a breakfast club at the primary school that's located down there. The Kiwanis, in conjunction with the police station in West End, offer free breakfast every single day for those students that are less fortunate than others and who may not generally, be able to afford it. And those type of initiatives geared towards children always touch my heart. And I think that in itself was the deciding factor for me deciding to continue to attend.
Okay, so excellent. Ferguson, I added you to the list. So let me know if you helping your girls out and we'll talk to y'all next week.
That's why I tell you, I carry and I dragging all of them next week.
Okay, good. Help them. They need this 5%. Help them. This is help.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, so
I
very
need
good.
that desperately.
Who is this who needed desperately? Who
The
that
next
there?
Ferguson.
Oh,
Hey, Miss Bullard.
Anika. Oh, okay, that's what you have your hand raised for. And
Yes,
Ferguson?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
okay. So yeah, your group will help you out. Very good, ladies, for helping out. Thank you for that. Okay. Who was Adrian Wallace? What your hand was raised? Could you put it down? You good?
Enjoy the rest, crew. I'm
Up for
going.
next week.
Okay. All right. That's it though. That's it. No more, nobody else. So the whole class could be on civic organizations, but it's get your points in. Get your points in.
Miss Bullard,
Okay. Yes.
I need the 5 points too. I didn't
You
attend.
too, Trevor. You too. Y'all don't like okay. So like I said, we can split it half and half. Okay, I put Trevor name on the list as well.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay, guys. Okay, but it's a good thing, and I'm happy that persons are enthused and they're going out there and finding that these meetings are beneficial. Okay. And network. I am telling you, if you don't know nobody, trust me, you don't get nowhere in this Bahama land. So please get out there, keep tonsils. You aren't looking for boyfriends or girlfriends. You aren't looking for godparents for your children. You are doing this for career development. Okay? And taking these people's number, make sure it's for business. You can be calling, but what you doing Friday night? Business. Separate the two. Okay? Business network only. All right, now.
That's right.
Kirsten wanted to say something.
Yes, I wanted to just talk about, well, this has to do with the newspaper article, but I wanted to add to it what one of my co-parts was saying for the sand dollar thing today. Sorry, the sand dollar system that will be used today at the food festival. And so, of course, we started to talk about everything becoming digitized. And the newspaper article I read this week was with Fidelity. They are establishing a branch in Exuma, and they are going to be primary digital, and they are encouraging, they'll be encouraging the residents to go the digital route. And they will be actually providing them with the actual training. So they're going to be having town meetings and whatever is necessary to get the residents of Exuma up to par to really utilize this particular or this new system, because they're really trying to be cashless. And so it goes along with what you said, and that is that very, very soon we will pretty much be cashless.
Yeah, so don't get left behind. Just trying to figure out how to do it. Because you gotta teach your mommy and your Grammy, and some of us have great Grammy and your great grand uncles and aunts. All of them gonna need your help.
Yeah,
So
and you know they
Georgia,
are older ones have a bit
Right.
more of a they're strong in their belief and they don't want to learn, and so it's going to be a challenge, but hopefully Fidelity along, and they've already gotten approval from the central bank, so hopefully they should be able to do something that will appeal to all of the citizens, all of the residents of Exuma, you know, so that they can have banking access to banking.
yes, yes. Okay, guys. So very good. Start let the children look at it. Like every time I had a project, I have a daughter who is very smart, loves to read. I say, okay, go learn how to do this so you can show what you do. Okay, so get the children on standby. You need their help. All right, guys. So very good. It's a lot of detail. I hope that you are able to digest it and then retain some of the information and apply it in our institutions. And I want you to have a productive week. Enjoy the food festival. Have loads of fun, and
All right, you
we'll
too.
do this again next week.
Yes, and I go make some alcohol.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay,
Miss
so have a
Lauren.
fabulous weekend, and I'll see you all next week.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, guys.
Okay. Miss Bullock could be here marking all them homework.
The homework from last week, Miss Bullitt, did you grade it already or?
You did placement
Yes, ma'am.
and you didn't get a grade?
No, ma'am. I saw what you said you received it last week, but I didn't receive the grade back.
Okay, I'll check with the cross marker to get your grade. I'll get it out to you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Take
Nice
care.
weekend. You too.
You too.